What's going on, duelists? It's your boy Nick, bringing you today on the channel an update to my Ursarctic Ice Barrier deck list for the post Rage of the Abyss format. For those of you new to the channel, welcome. My name is Nick. We do Yu-Gi-Oh content mainly focused around rogue and casual decks alike. If that's the kind of Yu-Gi-Oh that you're interested in, then I highly encourage you to subscribe to the channel. We are currently working our way to 2,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. So for those of you who have been following the channel, you'll know that last weekend I attempted to record my live duel video between this Ursarctic Ice Barrier deck and my my previous Volcanic list, which was just recently updated to Azamina Volcanic. And you'll know that the live duel didn't go as well as I would have hoped, and as a result of that, I chose not to upload the video. In exchange, I told my subscribers and viewers that I would be updating both deck lists featured in that live duel, which were Volcanic, and I already updated the deck list for that, and that is currently on the channel. It's Azamina Volcanic. That will be the Volcanic variant that I'll be bringing into the upcoming live duel that I would like to re-record and hopefully get to upload if everything goes well. But I also stated that I would be updating my Ursarctic Ice Barrier list as well, with some minor tweaks and updates for consistency and just added power, basically. And I wanted to make sure that both decks were optimized a little bit more before bringing them into the live duel. And like I said, the Volcanic deck list has already been updated. You can check that out on my channel. And now I'm going to be doing the update for the Ursarctic list. Now that both deck lists have their featured updates, I will be bringing them back into the ring with each other so that way they can duke it out and we can determine which of these two decks will reign supreme over the other. So make sure that if you're not subscribed, you're subscribed so you don't miss that upload. Like I said, I'm going to be trying to record that live duel sometime soon. Just bear with me. It's difficult for me to grab some of the people that I play Yu-Gi-Oh with. They have other lives and other priorities and stuff. So just give me some time to bring you that live duel. But in the meantime, at least you duelists can enjoy the updated deck list for not only this Ursarctic Ice Barrier list, but the Volcanic Azamina list as well. So with that out of the way, just giving you some background and context. I'm going to be breezing through this profile because realistically, not too many things have changed with the deck list since my previous update, and I don't just want to keep, re-releasing the same deck profile over and over again. So we're going to burn through this kind of quickly, and I'll just talk a little bit about some of the changes that I've made with the list. It is still a 60-card deck. That has not changed, but I did mess around with some of the ratios, as well as I was able to fit in some extra things that we'll discuss when we get through it. So, to start the list off, we have triple copies of Ursarctic McPolar, pretty much the main starter for the Ursarctic theme. When it is special summoned, it allows you to add an Ursarctic monster from the deck to the hand. For those of you who know, or who maybe don't know, Ursarctic, they all share the same summoning requirement where they must tribute a level 7 or higher monster from the hand to special summon themselves, and then once you do so, you are locked out of monsters without levels, which means you cannot play like Lynx or Xyz monsters in a Ursarctic based deck because they lock you out of those as soon as you use their in-hand effects to special themselves, which inherently is a bit neggy because again, that makes each Ursarctic kind of a -1 in card advantage, but there are ways you can kind of offset that and mitigate that by playing certain things, which we'll discuss. But mainly, Ursarctic's McPolar is usually a 3 of in most lists. Again, he's just pretty much your archetypal starter of sorts, allowing you to search any Ursarctic monster from the deck to your hand. So you always max out at 3 on that. Then up next, we have 2 copies of the Ultimate Bright Knight Ursatron Alpha. This card is always treated as an Ursarctic card, and pretty much it cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by a card effect. And then it states, if you control an Ursarctic monster except himself, he can special summon himself from the hand and allow you to search for an Ursarctic spell or trap from deck to hand as well. So not only is it a really insane extender, but also allows you to search for the Ursarctic spells and traps, which were previously unsearchable, which is obviously very strong. So just the 2 of here, the reason why we don't max out on it is because this is not a pure Ursarctic list. It is half Ursarctic, half Ice Barrier, and unfortunately in the hands that you open, which are predominantly Ice Barrier hands, if you have an Ursatron Alpha, it's not an extender in those hands. It can only be an extender if you control an Ursarctic. So that's why we just play it as a 2 of. You can search it off the aforementioned McPolar, so I feel like having it as a 2 of is perfectly fine. Then we're on 1 McTanis and 1 McBillis, the remaining minor bears as they're called. McTanis Again, same summoning condition as McPolar, but on special summon allows you to add an Ursarctic monster from the graveyard to your hand. And then McBillis, again, same summoning condition, on special summon allows you to special an Ursarctic monster from the hand. So one ofs of each of these. McTannis was previously a 2 of in the list, but we did cut it down to 1 just to help increase consistency, because McTannis unfortunately is not a starter like McPolar is. So in certain hands where you would hard open this, it felt kind of bad. You would rather have this as just like follow-up. So as a 1 of, it's perfectly fine. There's no need to play more than 1, even in a pure Ursarctic list, in my opinion. And then obviously McBillis for the same reasons. Although McBillis can special summon an Ursarctic from your hand, there is no guarantee that you'll have an Ursarctic in the hand, given that the deck list, is a bit larger than your standard 40 card variant, and it also has a whole nother engine in the form of Ice Barrier. So, having McBillis in the hand sometimes can be a bit of a detriment, because if you don't have another Ursarctic to special summon, then McBillis actively doesn't really do much. So as 1-ofs, they're perfectly fine. You can toolbox into them as needed, and I haven't noticed any problems since I've cut them to 1. Now moving on to the major bears. These bears are basically your disruptors. Same summoning condition as the McPolar, Tannis, and Billis, but these bears are a bit more formidable in terms of stats, and instead of them having effects that help you build your board, they have effects that basically disrupt your opponent. Keep in mind that all the Ursarctic monsters are quick effects to summon from the hand, which makes them pretty unique. McTannis, upon special summon, if you control an Ursarctic, something that I should bring up is that all of the major bears require you to control another Ursarctic at the time of summon in order for them to activate their individual effects. So just something to be conscious of. But Megatannis, excuse me, upon special summon, if you control another Ursarctic, allows you to target a face-up monster your opponent controls and flip it face down. We max out on him at 3 because, in my opinion, he's the best disruptor. Book of Mooning an opponent's monster is still very good, even in this modern era of Yu-Gi-Oh! Keeping them from using not only that monster's effects, but also keeping them from using that monster as material for any form of extra deck summon outside of fusions and or ritual summoning, because Konami says those are the only 2 mechanics you can still use face down material, for those of you unaware. But still, I feel like it is the most relevant form of disruption, as opposed to Megapolar or Megabilis, who Megapolar respectively just pops a spell trap, and Megabilis just banishes a card out of the grave. Not to say that those effects are not important, but I feel that Megatannis is the most applicable in most matchups, whereas these tend to be a bit more situational. So that explains, the 3, 2, and 2 ratio. But these are, your tuner Ursarctic monsters. They're very high leveled, and as you know, Ursarctic synchros backwards, utilizing the reverse synchro mechanic from the anime, or the dark synchro mechanic, where you synchro summon using the difference in levels instead of the sum of levels. But this is pretty much my major bear ratio, and so far I haven't noticed any issues with that. Moving on now, that wraps up the Ursarctic monsters. We're moving into the Ice Barrier monsters, of which we play 3 copies of Revealer, pretty much the best Ice Barrier starter in my opinion. She's pretty much like an archetypal Halka Fibrax, where at the cost of a discard, she can special summon any Ice Barrier tuner from the deck. That is absolutely insane. A very powerful normal summon for a deck that otherwise lacks a normal summon. Then we follow that up with a playset of Mirror Mage of the Ice Barrier, new from the most recent Battles of Legends set. Mirror Mage is incredible. Not only is she a tuner that modulates her level, she can produce tokens, and when she's sent to the graveyard by any means, allows you to toolbox your deck for any Ice Barrier card that is either in your deck or in the banish zone to your hand. So very useful card here in my opinion. She also makes great discard fodder for some of your cards that require it, like Revealer for example. So you max out on both Revealer and Mage because they are extremely important. Then new addition is, before we were just playing 1 Hexa Spirit, I've now bumped up the count to 2 of on this card, for the simple fact that Hexa by itself is actually your only 1 card starter, because the only drawback with this deck is that everything you do for the most part requires at least a minimum of 2 card investment. For most of your combos, like the Ursarctics need at least 1 other card to tribute, Revealer needs a discard for example, so there isn't really a strict 1 card line, except for Hexa. Hexa by itself can get you to a few combos, like a Crocosaur or Crocodragon for a draw 3, and even a Lancia play, without any other resources. Hexa by itself can get you that. So I decided to increase it from a 1 of to a 2 of, because it functions as a pseudo starter alongside Revealer, albeit a little bit lower ceiling wise, but still just as powerful in my opinion. So by increasing the Hexa from a 1 of to a 2 of, you effectively increase the amount of playable starters the deck has. And like I said, since this deck lacks a normal summon, having Hexa be like a backup normal summon in tandem with Revealer obviously just helps increase consistency overall and increases your odds of opening like a starter play, which is pretty good. And then for those of you curious, a Hexa basically is a Foolish Burial for a level 3 or lower Ice Barrier. And then when he sends that Ice Barrier to the graveyard, his level becomes the level of the monster that you sent. Again, maximum being 3, which makes Hexa very unique because you can actually Hexa for cards like Mage, and that can help you get into certain plays. Then we round that out with 2 copies of Georges, Swordsman of the Ice Barrier. Pretty much Ice Barrier's version of what Bright Knight Ursatron Alpha is for Ursarctics. It's just an extender. If you control a Ice Barrier monster, you can special the Georges from the hand. And then upon his normal or special summon, he allows you to special summon a level 5 or lower Ice Barrier from the hand or graveyard. So really crazy extender. Like, it's a body who brings out another body for basically free. He's also a tuner as well and has a pretty neat floodgate effect against the opponent, where if you control the Georges alongside another Ice Barrier, your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters in their graveyard, which is a pretty impactful floodgate in my opinion. Now, new addition to the list is 1 copy of Defender of the Ice Barrier. Again, this is something that we were not playing previously, but moving forward, I think that this card is an incredible addition, and to be honest, I don't really have a good reason as to why I wasn't running it previously. Its Floodgate effect is actually pretty relevant, especially against decks like Tenpai. Preventing your opponent's monsters from attacking if their attack exceeds his defense is absolutely insane. Like I said, it straight up hoses the Tenpai matchup unless they hard open like removal or like an infinite impermanence or something to stop this. But that's not actually the reason why we play this card. It's not for its Floodgate effect, even if it is good in some situations. The real reason why we play this card is because it happens to be a level 3 tuner monster that, again, Revealer can summon from the deck. And if you look at their levels, Revealer is a 4, Defender is a level 3. This is a tuner and a non-tuner whose levels differ by 1, which means now, because we're playing the Defender in the deck, we can actually go into Ursarctic Polari and or Ursarctic Polar Star using the Revealer by bringing out the Defender from the deck. Now, I know that you're not going to be doing that all the time because obviously Revealer has your own set of combos that are obviously very strong, but in some hands, if you open a predominantly like Ursarctic based hand, but you have Revealer in the hand as your normal summon, you could, in theory, go Revealer, bring out Defender, make Polari, grab Dipper, and now you're just off to the races as far as the bear combo is concerned. Like, what this does is this gives the Ice Barrier package more ways to bridge into Ursarctics, which I really, really like. Especially since with cards like the Hexa, which we just discussed, Hexa now has an additional target that he could send to the graveyard, which before our only target was Mirror Mage, which would make Hexa a level 2, and obviously Mage would get her graveyard effect. But now that we play Defender, Hexa can dump the Defender, making Hexa a level 3 tuner, which means Hexa plus a Minor Bear can actually make the Lancia Dragon. So again, by playing this one of Defender in the main deck, you actually give Ursarctics more ways to bridge into Ice Barriers and vice versa. It's really, really insane and extremely powerful in my opinion. So I felt that playing it as a one-of is more than worth, the risk, because I know obviously if you draw this, it's a bit of a garnet. But in the grand scheme, I don't think that's much of a problem, given that this is a 60-card deck and it is just a one-of. But the amount of plays that it gives you access to by just existing in the deck is insane. And like I said, I really don't have a good reason as to why I wasn't choosing to run this before. It was something that I just came to me more recently, where I was thinking like, why don't I use Revealer to get into Polari? And that's how this whole thing kind of started. So playing the one of Defender in this deck has actually been a blast, and I can't wait to show you guys. Hopefully in the live duel it comes up at some point, so you guys can see how it actually works. Also, if you guys do want updated combos and test hands with this list, just let me know down in the comments below. I have absolutely no problem bringing you those types of videos if you want them. Then we just have the one General Raiho. Again, pretty straightforward, insane floodgate staple in most Ice Barrier lists. And each time your opponent would attempt to activate a monster effect on field, they have to discard a card. Otherwise, the effect is negated, which is really insane. Then, for some of our non-engine slots, we basically have 3 Ice Jade Ran Adrian, followed by 3 Molcharmi Perulia. We choose to main deck the Perulia over the Furrowas because Perulia happens to be a water, and there are more inherent synergies with Perulia because of that. But we still do play Furrowas. We just side deck it. We don't main board it. Then we're also on a playset of Nibiru. Nibiru is still, in my opinion, a pretty strong hand trap this format, but it also can be used as tribute fodder for an Ursarctic to be able to go down your Ursarctic lines in the event that the Nib is just kind of dead in your hand, which I really like, you know, the toolboxing that provides. Up next, 2 copies of the Tartarus, a brand new zombie from Rage of the Abyss. Pretty much this card is just there as to serve as fodder for Ursarctics. You tribute it to special and Ursarctic, and then when this card is sent to the graveyard, anywhere but from the deck, you can discard a card to non-target send any card on field to grave. So really insane removal effect on this, which makes it pretty cool. And then to round out the monster count, we just play 1 Gamma Seal in the main board. Again, mainly serves as tribute fodder for the Ursarctics, but it is searchable through a trap we'll talk about later, which means we basically have a searchable kaiju. Now moving on to the spells, 3 copies of Departure, pretty much a double rota for Ursarctics. 1 copy of Radiation is all you need. Playing multiples of this is just bricky in my opinion. There's no need, like it's not a starter or an extender. This card only works when you already have the Bear engine going, but it doesn't help you get the Bear engine going, which is why I think playing it as 1 is smart. Then we just have 1 copy of Slider, followed by the 1 of Big Dipper, Slider being their archetypal monster reborn, and then Dipper being their really strong field spell that not only functions as a snatch steal, but also allows you to help mitigate the cost of summoning your Ursarctics by allowing you to once per turn banish an Ursarctic from the grave instead of tributing, which is pretty cool. Then we just play 3 copies of Medallion. Again, non-once per turn rota is really insane. Then we have 3 copies of Talents, followed by 2 copies of Firestorms over Atlantis. Again, another new spell from Rage of the Abyss. Works really well in this deck, especially when going second. You just pitch a water to pop a monster the opponent controls, and then if you control no monsters but your opponent does, you can banish this from grave to special summon a level 7 or 8 water monster from your graveyard, which is pretty cool in my opinion. Nice tech card. It's been working out so well so far. And then we just play the 1 of Called by the Grave. Unfortunately, Called by is still limited for us, but at least it's at 1. Still very strong card. Then moving on to the traps, 1 copy of Ursarctic Quint Charge, just, you know, really good graveyard recursion, followed by a playset of Imperm and a playset of Ice Barrier. Not only is this card searchable in the deck through cards like Mirror Mage, but Ice Barrier is an insane discard for cards like Revealer and for cards like Departure, basically punishing your opponent if they choose to hand trap those types of cards, because Ice Barrier allows us to toolbox pretty much our entire deck, utilizing its graveyard effects. So that wraps up the 60 card main deck. Now we're going to be jumping into the extra deck, of which there was just 1 change, but we're still on obviously the Polari and Polar Star, the only level 1 synchros in the game currently, and again, you make those using the Ursarctic Dark Synchro gimmick. Then we have 1 Brionic, 1 Coral Dragon for our level 6 synchros of choice. Then for our 7s, we actually only play the Ursarctic ones, just 1 Septentrion and 1 Grand Chariot. I find that playing 1 of all of these is perfectly fine. You rarely need duplicates, especially since you can recycle a lot of your synchros using the graveyard effect, or I'm sorry, the end phase effect of Radiation, and you can even use the graveyard effect of Ice Barrier, the trap, to recycle these if you need, need them back in the extra deck for whatever reason. Then new addition to the deck, we've cut the Glacial Beast Iceberg Narwhal synchro we were running in favor of 1 copy of White Aura Whale. This just is a really powerful level 8 synchro that gives the deck a good way to break boards going second. So now going second, we have a little bit more ways to like crack the field, because that was my biggest problem with this deck in testing, was that if you do lose the die roll and go second, I felt like it had a bit of a hard time trying to break established boards. So at least with the addition of White Aura Whale, he should somewhat mitigate that problem. But the White Aura Whale and Dragite are our 2 level 8 synchros of choice. Then, of course, we have the Ravenous Crocodragon, followed by 1 of the OG Trishulas, 1 Ice Jade Gamir Aegerin, 1 Cheng-Ying, and then we have 2 copies of Lancia Ancestral Dragon of the Ice Mountain. Really insane Ice Barrier boss. It's just incredible. I can't even understand how amazing this card is. That's why it's a 2 of. And then obviously to round out the last card of the extra is 1 Zero Trishula. Very powerful synchro there as well. Now moving on to the side deck, pretty much unchanged. Again, side deck's honestly up to personal preference. You build your side however you need to, depending on how your local scene looks. But we are playing a playset of Fuwalos. Again, I know this card is insanely expensive. Do you need it? No. But if you have the means to afford it, then, I mean, you might as well just pick it up, because obviously it's going to be pretty much a meta staple for the foreseeable future. I don't ever foresee this card being power crept for any reason, unless they just outright ban it. But obviously a very strong card. Then we do play one General Wayne, one Medium of the Ice Barrier for our more spell trap focus matchups. You know, you can mess around with some of the Ice Barrier Floodgates you main deck and sub them for cards that are a bit more appropriate, depending on the deck you face. Then we do side deck one Tartarus, we main deck 2, side to 1, for when we know we're going second. We also play 3 Dark Ruler and 3 Cosmics. Again, just really good cards. You know, Dark Ruler for going second, and Cosmic, whether you go first or second, it's still a very strong staple in this format. And then to round out the remaining cards on the side is a playset of Synchro Forceback, TCG exclusive that is a really good trap card for most Synchro decks if you're going first. But outside of that, that's going to wrap up my update to my Ursarctic Ice Barrier list. This updated deck list will be the list that is going to be featured in my upcoming live duel once I get the chance to re-record that. And like I said, as long as everything goes smooth, I should be able to upload those duels. Again, I want to express my deepest apologies for not being able to upload my previous video, but I would rather upload, you know, quality over quantity. So in exchange, I agreed to upload, you know, updated deck lists, and I will be bringing both the updated Azamina Volcanic and my updated Ursarctic Ice Barrier list to a live duel very soon. So like I said, just be patient for that. As far as things to expect in the channel upcoming, I actually have an updated deck list for my Insect Pile deck that I've been featuring on the channel recently. I've made some tweaks to that deck list as well, so expect to see that, if not this weekend, then maybe early next week at some time. I just want to do some more testing with that deck and make sure it's good to go before I bring it back to the channel again. But with that being said, Duelist, this is Nick, hitting that end phase. Like I said, thank you all so much for your continued support, and make sure you are liked and subscribed if you're not already, and stay tuned for that upcoming live duel between Ursarctic Ice Barrier and Volcanic Azamina. With that being said, this is Nick, hitting that end phase. Peace.